we are doing something a little bit different. So one of the persistent complaints I've always heard about the S18 are its tiny battery and presumed shorter range. So I figured it'd be fun for us to put it to the test on a long distance trip. This week we traveled 300 miles east from New York to Cape Cod, and no, I'm not riding all the way there, are you crazy? But I will be relying on the S18 for one of the long distance legs, so yes, there is a chance I may not make it all the way. So would it be the walk of shame for me? This week, the King Song S18 long range test and road trip. Are you ready? Roll the intro. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe and click on that bell icon to be notified of new episodes. This particular range test is going to be a little bit different. Instead of just getting on a trail and riding the wheel as far as it could go, we're going to be taking it on a long distance trip that involves different modes of transportations, and I'm going to be using the S18 to bridge all the connections in between. But it's not just that either. On one of the legs, I'm going to be riding it for a good long distance, so we certainly will be pushing the wheels. Anyhow, our story started on the early morning bus to Boston, and we had a near disaster even before the trip started. So right from the outset, the S18 already saved this trip once. For whatever reason, I forgot to plug in my phone last night, so it was basically dead this morning and I didn't hear any alarm. I woke up half an hour before the scheduled bus departure, and after about 5 minutes of me panicking and running around the room, I decided to go for it anyway. So I threw on some clothes and rushed out of the door with the S18, and I managed to make it across town in less than 10 minutes. And it would have been impossible for me to do anything, including calling for Uber, because it takes longer than that to try to get all the way to the west side. The megabus ride was smooth and we didn't hit any traffic. We arrived in Boston at 10:30, earlier than scheduled, which was a nice surprise. Now I just had to figure out where my next transport connect is. Luckily, with the S18, I can cover most of downtown easily. Now the wheel traveled 3.5 miles so far, and it's still at 98% battery capacity. South stations. The ferry I'm scheduled to take isn't scheduled to leave till 5:30 tonight. I am going to try to stop by the terminal and see if there's any chance that I can catch an earlier boat. But based on what they had said on the website, it's already completely booked. Not that I would mind to spend a little bit of time and explore Boston on my wheel. Look at that. There's like a restaurant on the river. It wasn't too hard to figure out where I have to go, since I figured all I had to do is to follow the waterfront, and eventually I'll find the dock with the ferry I need to catch to get to my next stop.
Okay, I put you on the wait list.
Yep.
As long as somebody doesn't show up, you get their spot.
Okay. So we'll have to see whether or not we can make it onto the 1 p.m. ferry. I mean, if we can't, we can't. It's fine. I'll just go and wander around the city a bit more. I am really hungry. I didn't have a chance to grab anything to eat before I hop on the bus. I love to find something local, cheap, and yummy, since there's nothing I like more than finding some hidden local gems. Plus, we have 2 hours, which is plenty of time to do that and throw in some local sightseeing also. See, here is where I'm always a little bit puzzled whenever I come to a new city. Do people follow the direction of the traffic signal, or do they jaywalk all over the place? I see people. Let's see if they're gonna run the light. They were waiting patiently. They want to get to where they need to get to quicker. Oh my god. So we cover another 5.6 miles and the wheel is now down to 84%. My brunch, I stopped by Mike and Patty's, which according to Yelp, it's a good local spot. And going by all the people that is waiting outside of the tiny hole in the wall spot, I'm guessing that Yelp knows. very bacony.
Just look at this thing. Promises of melty deliciousness await.
There's like all this onion in it. Somehow it reminds me of like a French onion soup. Oh, that was really good.
It drizzled a bit, but thankfully didn't last long, so I was able to get back on the S18 and cruise around some more.
In the past, whenever I travel to a new city, it's always a bit of a pain because you either have to rent a car, which get you from places to places more easily, but then you have to worry about parking and so on, or you can rely on shared transportation like subways or what have you. But that really kind of take away from the experience of seeing the city as a connected whole.
And that is the reason why I love the chance to explore brand new cities on electric unicycle. The opportunity to experience a much larger cross-section through different neighborhoods, areas, and see how people make each special and distinct.
What is that, huh?
So one downside with the EUC is that you can unfortunately fly with it because even the smallest wheel has a far larger battery capacity than the maximum allowable under FAA guideline. This is why I always said that I wanted to see wheels that has modular removable batteries. This way you can travel without the battery and then maybe ship the battery separately or even getting one once you get to your destination. Let's see if we get lucky. Hopefully we do. I really like to make it onto this ferry instead of the 531. I don't like the prospect of riding in the dark, especially in areas where I'm not familiar with. All right, so we made it back to the ferry and they said that there's still 22 spots left with 15 minutes to go. We're up to 8.1 miles and the battery is at 77%.
All right, here you go.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Awesome. So we made it onto the boat. We'll be able to ride during the daytime. That made me feel a little bit better about pushing the range. Oh, thank you.
This was the first time I ever rode the ferry to Cape Cod. In the past, I either drove or ridden my motorcycle. A long, boring 8 to 9 hours trip that I didn't enjoy much. This, on the other hand, with the wind and salty ocean air blowing through my hair, was definitely an improvement. It was sunny and nice and smooth sailing for us. The ferry ride took us across Cape Cod Bay and after an hour and a half landed us right on the dock in front of Provincetown. And if you're thinking what I'm thinking, that's right, it's time for snack once again.
That's what we're here for.
This is the Portuguese bakery, well known for their malassada, which I always have to have every time I come for a visit.
This is it. It's like a giant fried donut. Anything fried is good. Oh my god. This is probably killing me. It's all worth it. All the long trip and getting up early in the morning just for this. It's not exactly as crunchy as the typical fried dough because it's kind of like halfway between fried dough and a donut. My friend's cabin is about 30 miles south of this spot. The wheel is at 77% stationary, which means that as soon as I start moving, it's gonna probably drop down to 60. I honestly don't think that we'll be able to make the 30-mile trip. There is a charge spot like somewhere in the middle. Let's see how we do.
After once again stuffing myself, it's time to get moving.
By the way, if you haven't noticed already, from all the rainbow flag that is in front of every single storefront and restaurant, P-Town is a huge LGBTQ town, and it's especially noticeable when you come out at night. You can get a sense of what it's like to be the minority when it comes to your orientations. It's actually quite incredible that this place is only an hour and a half ferry ride away from Boston. So speaking of rain, keep in mind that what you can expect to get out of your wheel is partly a function of how fast you're riding as well as how much you weight. For instance, today I have this, big 20-pound backpack, so it's gonna cut my range down a little bit. Look at this bay.
south on Route 6A on the Bayside, which is lined with hundreds of tiny vacation cottages, all to take advantage of the spectacular view, easy access to the beach, and proximity to P-Town.
But I think speed have a lot to do with it. If you're pushing the upper end of your wheel the entire time, you're not going to get very much mileage out of your battery.
But it was hard to take my own advice on open roads like this, especially with car whizzing by doing 30 to 40s. But as the Cape widened, the road takes me further inland.
Alright, we're almost an hour into the ride, and I am pretty sure I'm not going to make it. The wheel is down to 18%, having traveled 22.7 miles. It's showing 70% at rest, but when I'm riding, it's right now probably hovering around 6 to 7%. Why I'm going very, very slow?
I got to the town of Wellfleet, known for its oyster bed and whaling back in the days, and by this point, I really had to stop and charge.
Now, the best thing we can do is really find a spot where we can eat something, hang out for a little bit, and as long as they have a charge outlet, it should be good. All right. So I had to charge. So right now at rest, the wheel is actually showing 20%, but again, when I'm actually riding, it's sagged down to about 6 to 8%, and I am really throttling very hard. I was probably doing maybe 50 miles an hour. Definitely not going to make the remaining 18 miles, so I'm gonna stay here and charge for half an hour and see where that brings me up to. And I also use the opportunity to have lobster chowder. What else do you do on the Cape, right? So that took a little bit longer than expected. I was originally planning on only staying for half an hour. It ended up taking longer than I expected. I stayed an hour and a half, and I brought my battery up from 20% to 50%. A bit more reassuring, and hopefully enough to take me the rest of the 14 miles route. It's a little bit hard to tell because the first 50% of the battery is very different than the second 50% of the battery. You get the most amount of mileage from 100% to 90%, and after that the efficiency dropped. And that was one of the things I didn't know about before I got a personal electric vehicle. By the way, look at this traffic, man. This is why it takes so long to drive on Cape Cod, because there's just one road. No, I'm going the wrong way. God damn it. Oh, that makes me nervous. Riding out in the stick always freak me out a little bit. People merging, the sun is behind me. People aren't really looking at me. This guy is not gonna look at me. All right, that was very uncomfortable. That's what we were looking for. A proper bike path, separated.
It was a huge relief to finally get on a protected bike lane. And like the bike path I took through Westchester on the Monster Long Range test, this path was also the remnant of an old railroad track, which dates back to the 1800s when fishing and whaling was still the main economic engine here on Cape Cod.
So the wheel is sounding a little bit weird. I suspect that the bearing might be a bit rusty inside of this wheel. Now I heard that Dove had this problem with his V11. Basically, he rode in the rain, and after that, his wheel bearing rusted. I know it's supposed to be IP55 or whatever you call it, but honestly, I'm always a little bit skeptical as to exactly how waterproof that they can really make these things. So
the rides continue, and thankfully the clouds finally parted and the sun came back out.
we are getting close with the sun setting. Now I have done 34.8 miles. I am once again down to 10%. Wow, look at that. That is spectacular. And I have 4.3 miles to go. I think we can, we'll see. It is time like this that makes me really appreciate riding an electric unicycle. Of all the times I have visited Cape Cod, I have never taken this route. I made it to their town. We're getting close, but I am down to 4%. That extra 400 watt hour on the V11 starting to sound real good right now. So it took me 4.5 hours. If I'd taken the 5:30 ferry, which would have gotten me here at 7, and then I have to ride at night, I wouldn't be able to stop on the way to charge because all the places would be closed.
Finally, I made it to my friend's place with the King Song S18 at literally 0%, having covered a total of 43 miles with 90 minutes of charge stop. It was a long, tiring trip since without a seat I had to stand most of the way. I rested when clamming. Didn't know that was a thing, but fun and also delicious. I hung out on the beach and the weekend flew by quickly, and before I knew it, it was time to head back. And in case if you were curious, I did take the same route back.
It's a Monday, so it's very quiet here. Based on what I learned on the way here, I should be able to make the trip in one go without stopping to recharge on the way. The wheels should be good for 30 miles, but it's likely going to be completely dead by the time we get there. So seated riding is possible on the S18. It is very, very low, so it feels a little bit weird. On the Monster, I actually usually don't put 100% of my weight on the seat. I do a little bit of a squat so I can cushion whatever bump. I don't have to do that as much on the S18 because of the suspension, so I can put more of my weight on the seat.
The return trip did go smoother, but wishing to stay off the main road and away from cars, and taking the advice from Google, I took a weird detour.
This is an interesting little road we have to take. I guess it's a bike path. It's unpaved, it's just dirt. But I see car coming down this way, so it's a little bit sketchy. Oh my god, it's very dusty. Oh my god, this road is really, it's pretty roughed. Well, the poor S18.
It got roughed up a bit more, covering sand, but to its credit, kept on running.
Oh my god, the sand here is really... Damn it, Google! Why did you make me come this way? It's so cool to be riding here. Oh, let me get off to the side. All the cars slowly driving past. Let me avoid the middle because that's where the deepest sand. Don't say I did not put the suspension to the test. Oh my god.
It was a fun road to take, but I had to get off since my progress was slow and I had a ferry to catch.
Coming back to Route 6, which is the main thoroughfare on Cape Cod, there is a bike lane on the right-hand side. However, cars are flying by at much higher speed, so it's less comfortable.
I continue onward towards P-Town, and the battery was actually holding up much better than expected.
18.6 miles, and there's about 50% left. We covered 21.5 miles, and the battery 40%. Okay, we're almost there. We're 1.3 miles away. Battery is reading 20% with a total travel time of 2 hours. Not so bad. I got a nice view of the bay.
I arrived at Provincetown with 15% battery and had enough time to grab one last lobster roll before I headed to the ferry. This was quite the trip. I thoroughly enjoy riding the S18. The size of the battery actually didn't bother me as much as how slow charging was, but a 6-amp aftermarket charger would probably have made life a little bit easier. But more importantly, I saw so much more of the places I visited because I rode an electric unicycle, and if you have never traveled with an EUC before, you should. Look at the time I somehow managed to waste, it's a record, 20 minutes of your life, but I hope you enjoyed it. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe and check out the link to my Patreon page if you like to support my work. And as much as we all love electric unicycle, the only way for us to get better wheels is to grow as a community. So tell your friend and teach them how to ride and get them hooked. And until the next video, thank you.